The crowd was wild. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled the arena. Some had tentacles, some had wings. Some had 3 eyes glowing red. But all of them were here for one reason: blood, and bets. In the center of the arena was a large circle, made of black stone. Around it, cages opened one by one, letting monsters out. Creatures with sharp claws, metal teeth, and thick armored skin growled and roared. The ground shook under their feet. Above the arena, in a glass chamber, sat the arena masters, rich alien lords who controlled the fights. They wore golden robes and strange symbols. One of them laughed loudly, holding a glowing cube in his hand. "This next one will be short," he said, grinning. "The human is already half dead." A tall alien with green skin nodded. "I'll bet all my credits he dies in the first minute." Another alien laughed. "I'll bet my personal slave. She's beautiful, rare, and completely obedient. That human won't last 5 seconds." They all agreed. The human had no chance. The arena lights dimmed. A door opened slowly at one end of the arena. Heavy footsteps echoed. Out came the human. He was covered in blood. His left arm was broken. One eye was swollen shut. He walked slowly, dragging one leg. His clothes were torn and burnt. Chains hung from his wrists, now broken. His face was dirty, but calm. The crowd laughed. Some threw things at him. Others yelled insults in different languages. To them, he was nothing, weak, broken, already dead. But the human didn't react. He looked up once, just once, at the glass chamber above. His eyes locked on the alien who had bet his slave. And then he smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small curl of the lips. But it was enough to make the alien shift in his seat. In the corner of the arena, the slave girl was standing. She had silver hair, bright blue eyes, and chains on her ankles. She looked up sharply when she saw the human. Her eyes widened. She took one small step forward, then stopped. Did she know him? A loud buzzer rang through the arena. The fight was about to begin. From the other side, the monster stepped out. 10 feet tall, 4 arms, black armor, yellow eyes. It roared and slammed its fists into the ground. The crowd screamed in excitement. Bets were confirmed. Numbers flew across the air in holograms. The alien lords leaned forward in their seats. This was it. The bell rang. The monster charged at the human, fast and heavy. Dust rose from its feet. It swung one giant fist aimed straight at the human's head. But the human moved, not fast, not smooth, but just enough. He ducked. The fist missed by an inch. Then the human took a step to the side, and the monster's second swing missed too. The crowd went silent for a moment. Just 1 second. Then the human raised his hand and smiled again. From above, the alien lords stared. "What is this?" One said, "He should be dead." The monster growled and turned again. But this time, the human moved first. He grabbed a piece of broken chain from the ground. With surprising speed, he jumped onto the monster's back. The chain wrapped around its neck. The monster thrashed, trying to throw him off. The slave girl watched, her lips parted in shock. The human tightened the chain. His muscles shook with pain, but he didn't stop. He pulled harder. The monster stumbled, then dropped to its knees. Its roars turned to gasps. Then silence. The monster fell dead. The arena was completely silent. Then the crowd exploded in noise, shouting, screaming, confused. Some angry, some amazed. In the glass chamber, the alien who bet his slave stood up. "No, this is a trick. He cheated." But the rules were clear. The human had won. The slave girl was brought forward, her chains unlocked. She stood next to the human for a moment. They didn't speak. Then the human leaned in and whispered something only she could hear. "You're free now." Her eyes filled with tears. He turned to the alien lords above and said in a quiet voice, full of strength, "This is just the beginning." The arena was still buzzing with noise, but one part of the crowd had gone silent. The part that had lost everything. Alien lords sat frozen. Their eyes were wide, their mouths open. No one expected it. A wounded human had just killed a war beast, not with weapons, not with armor, just with timing, pain, and a broken chain. And that smile, that strange, cold, human smile. The human stood silently in the middle of the arena. His body shook slightly, blood dripped from his side. But his eyes, they were sharp, alert, alive. Next to him stood the alien girl, the former slave. She was tall, silver-haired, and glowing faintly. Her eyes were still fixed on him, full of something the other aliens did not understand, hope. For a moment, they didn't speak. There were no words needed. Their eyes said everything. Then loudspeakers cracked above them. The announcer's voice returned, trying to control the crowd. "And the human wins, but remember, it's not over yet." More boos, more cheers, more confusion. The alien who had bet his slave stood, red with anger. He pointed at the human and growled. "One win means nothing. He must survive 6 more battles to earn freedom. Otherwise the girl is ours again." The human didn't answer. He simply bent down, picked up a small metal shard from the ground, and examined it, calm, quiet, focused. Like he wasn't in the middle of a death arena. The girl leaned close. "Do you remember me?" she asked softly, her voice shaking. The human looked at her for the first time, truly looked. His gaze softened for a second. Then he whispered, low so only she could hear, "I never forgot." Flashback 3 weeks ago. Rain poured down, Earth. Nighttime. The human was in a black uniform, leading a small team through the woods. He wore night vision goggles, and his earpiece buzzed with military codes. They were chasing something, a signal from deep space, a crash site. And then, a flash of blue light, a sound like thunder, screaming. One by one, his team disappeared. When he woke up, he was in chains, in a ship, surrounded by aliens, and across from him was her, eyes dull, voice gone. No memory of who she was. Back to pure innocent. To human blinked. The memory passed. The girl stood straighter now. She looked around at the guards, the arena, the walls. Then back to him. "They're afraid of you now," she said. "You smiled. They don't know why, and that makes them afraid." The human smiled again, just slightly. "Good." Later that night, he was locked in a holding cell. His wounds had been treated, but barely. A single camera watched him from the ceiling. He sat cross-legged on the floor, staring into the dark. He spoke softly to no one. 6 more fights. That's enough. Enough for what? No one heard. But his fingers traced a shape into the dirt. A small triangle with 3 lines through it. A symbol. A message. A plan. Meanwhile, in the alien control room, the masters argued. "He's dangerous. Too smart. That smile, it's not madness. It's strategy. We should kill him in the next round. We can't. The crowds love him now. He's good for business. Then we change the odds. Bigger enemies. No weapons. Let's see how long his smile lasts." They all agreed. The next fight would not be fair. It would be a message. But deep in the shadows of the arena, in an old tech room, the alien girl was doing something strange. She moved like she had been here before. Her fingers danced across an old control pad. A screen lit up. Symbols appeared. Her eyes glowed slightly. "Almost there," she whispered. "Just a little longer." She wasn't just a slave. Not anymore. The next day, the crowd returned. Bigger than before, louder, wilder. The human was brought out again, this time without chains. But they had taken his armor, his tools, even his shoes. Across from him stood his next enemy. 2 armored warriors, 6 arms each, trained to kill. The bell rang. And the human? He smiled again. The fight was over. Two elite alien warriors lay motionless. On the ground, their armor cracked, their bodies broken. The crowd was stunned into silence for the second time in 2 days. The human stood tall, covered in bruises and blood. His breathing was slow, deep, controlled. He didn't roar in victory. He didn't raise his fists, he just looked up. And smiled. And somewhere high above the arena, in a private viewing room, one alien whispered, "Who is he?" The question wasn't new. Even the slave girl didn't have the answer. She had been watching the human closely. Since that first fight. Since that first smile. She had served hundreds of warriors before. Most were loud, proud. They screamed, threatened, made promises of freedom and revenge. But this one? He just moved in silence. Every action had purpose. Every breath was calculated, and every enemy he faced was outsmarted, not just overpowered. That night, while the arena rested and the crowd drank and celebrated, a shadow moved through the hallways. It was the slave girl, no longer chained, but still watched. She moved with care, memorizing guard patrols, camera angles, door codes. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for something. She reached a dark corner of the arena's lower level, a hidden chamber with ancient controls. A screen flickered to life. Lines of strange code scrolled across it. Then a voice crackled through a small speaker. "Identify yourself." She hesitated, then answered. "Designation, Cerise Unit 7, status awakened." Silence. Then the voice replied, robotic but clear. "Memory core damaged, status confirmed, protocols reactivating." Her eyes glowed faintly. She closed them for a moment. And a wave of forgotten memories surged forward. She wasn't just a slave, she was a weapon, once feared. Once free. Back in his cell, the human was wide awake. He wasn't resting. He was building, using broken armor pieces, wires from the floor, and a sharp nail he found under his cot. He was making something. Small, simple, but deadly. Above him, the camera blinked red. He looked up at it. Then whispered, "Still watching? Good." Flashback to 6 months ago. Secret Earth facility, a room filled with maps, alien symbols, and blinking monitors. The human, wearing a black uniform, stood before a table of generals. One of them pointed to a glowing symbol. "This is where they're hiding her," the general said. "Project Cerise. She's not just alien. She's a weapon they stole from us." The human nodded. "What's the mission?" The general stared. "You go in alone. Get her out, or destroy the project. You may not come back." Back to Present. Next morning, the guards arrived to take the human to his next match. But when they opened the cell, he was already standing, waiting. One guard muttered, "No fear." The human replied, calmly, "You should be afraid." In the arena, the announcer's voice echoed again. "Match 3, this time a creature from the void." The gates opened. A huge shadow crept out. It didn't walk. It slithred. Long, dark, with dozens of eyes and a mouth too wide for its face. It screeched, shaking the walls. The human looked at it for a second, then at the ground. He was waiting, calculating, noticing something no one else saw. The beast lunged. But he didn't move. Instead, he ran toward the creature. The crowd gasped. At the last moment, he slid under it, jammed a metal shard into the ground, and rolled away. The beast screamed and twisted, then collapsed. Its head hit the hidden spike he had placed minutes before the match began. Another silent kill. Another impossible win. The alien lords were no longer cheering. They were whispering, nervous. "This human isn't fighting for freedom," one said. "He's doing something else. He's planning something." Later, in the hall, as he walked back to his cell, the slave girl appeared beside him. For a moment, they were alone. "They know," she said. He nodded. Let them. She touched his arm. Your memories. They're coming back? He looked at her, and for the first time, his voice softened. They never left. I was just waiting. Waiting for what? For you. It began with a spark dot, not in the sky. Not in the arena. But behind her eyes dot, as Cerise stood in the shadows of the arena's lower floor, watching the human walk back from his third impossible victory, she felt it again. A burning sensation. Small, but growing. For years, she had been silent, obedient. Her voice had been soft, her steps controlled. She had been trained, broken, and reshaped into what the aliens called perfect property. But now, something inside her refused to stay quiet. She walked alone that night. No guards, no chains, not because they trusted her, because they thought. She was still broken, but they were wrong. In her hands, she held a small device. Black, rusted, almost dead. But when she touched it, it glowed blue. She remembered it. Not how it worked, but that it had once answered her voice. She whispered a command, something deep in a forgotten language, and the device responded. At the same time, in his cell, the human was awake again. His wounds were healing slower now, but his mind still. Sharp, still dangerous. He stared at the ceiling, at the same blinking red camera. 3 down, he muttered. 4 to go. A voice came from the shadows. You planned this from the start. It was her. Cerise. She stepped into the cell, her blue eyes brighter than before. He looked up at her. I planned part of it. The rest, I'm just adapting. She sat beside him. I remember your face, she said quietly. Not where. Not when, but it means something. He nodded. We were sent to rescue you 6 months ago. Earth Command thought you were a weapon. She looked down at her hands. Maybe I was. Maybe you still are. She met his eyes. Would you be afraid if I was? No, he said. I'm counting on it. Flashback. Years ago, unknown Pileanatsiris stood at the front of a vast alien army. Her hair was short, her armor black and glowing with blue lights. In her hands, she held a sword that hummed with energy. A voice called out from behind her. Commander Cerise, the enemy fleet is breaking through. She turned. Her eyes burned like stars. Then we break them first. She led the charge, and then everything went white. Back to Pieriensant, she gasped. The human caught her before she fell. What did you see? He asked. War, she whispered. I was not just a weapon. I was a leader. The next day, in the arena, something had changed. Human's name had spread across alien markets and betting halls. Some called him the Ghost. Others called him the Bloodless Warrior. But one name began to rise above the rest. The human who smiles before the kill. The aliens loved it. But the arena lords? They were panicking. He's inspiring the lower races, one growled. If he wins again, there will be riots. Then we kill him outside the arena, said another, quietly. No rules broken. But it was already too late. Down below, in the maintenance tunnels, Cerise had already connected her device to the arena's mainframe. A map appeared. Hundreds of hidden passages, power controls, and prisoner locations, and one locked file. She tapped it. The screen pulsed. A face appeared. Her own, and next to it, Cerise Class Omega, dangerous, uncontrollable. Orders, keep drugged. Memory blocked. Destroy if reawakened. She stared, and her eyes began to glow brighter. In the arena, the fourth match was about to begin. 2 metal giants stepped out, machines, not creatures. 8 feet tall, razor arms, emotionless red lights for eyes. The human walked out slowly. No weapons again, but this time, he looked different. He wasn't alone. Cerise stood at the gate. Still outside the ring, but visible to the crowd, she stared at the machine's. And for the first time in years, She spoke loudly. In a voice filled with ancient power, she shouted, "Initiate Omega Protocol." The lights flickered. The machine stopped moving. The alien crowd gasped. The human charged. 1 hit. 2 hits. The machines tried to reboot, but it was too late. He broke them apart with speed, precision, and help. As the final machine collapsed, the crowd didn't cheer. They stood in silence, watching her, and the fire in her eyes. The lights in the arena began to flicker. Not from damage, but from fear. In the control room above, the arena lords were not laughing anymore. Their faces were pale. Their screens were glitching. Something had changed. A slave had spoken with command. A human had killed machines meant to be unkillable. This wasn't supposed to happen, one of them hissed. She triggered an old protocol Omega class. It was shut down decades ago. And the human? Another whispered. He's no warrior. He's something else. Down below, in a dim hallway beneath the arena, the human sat quietly. His hands were bloody, his chest bruised, but his eyes calm. Cerise stood across from him, holding the same small black device that had woken her up. "They're watching. US closer now," she said. "Let them," he replied. "That means they're afraid." She hesitated. "You still haven't told me your real name." He looked up. "Names are for after the war." Flashback. Earth military ship months ago. A young soldier stood in front of a screen, reading mission details. Target, Ceres Unit 7 location, captured by alien syndicate. Mission, extract, disable, or destroy. The camera zoomed in on his face. No name given. Just a code. WOLF-9. Back to PR reset. The 5th match was announced. The crowd had returned, confused but excited. Whispers moved like wind through the stands. The human is cheating. The slave is a secret weapon. This is more than a game now. The announcer's voice tried to sound cheerful. And now, for match 5. A beast from the old wars. The arena floor began to shake. Chains rattled. Dust fell from the walls. Then, the gate opened. And something stepped out. No, crawled out. It was long, like a centipede, but with armor and red glowing marks across its body. It had no eyes. Only a mouth filled with spinning blades. The crowd leaned forward. Cerise stood at the gate again, but didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes were already glowing. The human didn't wait this time. He ran toward the creature. The crowd gasped, but it wasn't an attack. He ran past the beast, picked up a rusted piece of metal from the ground, then rolled under its body and stabbed something under its belly. It roared, twisted, spun wildly. Then exploded in sparks. The crowd screamed. What just happened? Simple, he remembered. This beast used in old wars had a weakness in its lower armor. That file had been in his training years ago. He stored it in his mind. Just in case. In the glass chamber, one arena lord slammed his fist. He's not guessing. He knows these creatures. Another alien turned slowly. No, he studied them. Long before we brought him here. They looked at each other. And realized something terrifying. We didn't capture a prisoner. We kidnapped a soldier on a mission. Back in the tunnels, after the fight, Cerise found him in the dark, sharpening a piece of broken armor into a blade. "Why don't you rest?" she asked. "Because they won't. They're going to kill me before match 7. You still plan to finish it?" "Yes," she knelt beside him. "Then I'll help." Flashback. Unknown alien Ellaby Cerise was strapped to a table. Machines buzzed. Scientists in metal suits poked and wrote notes. "Her power is off the charts," one said. "But her mind is unstable. Then block the memories. Control the core." They placed a chip behind her neck. Her eyes dimmed. Her voice faded. Back to present. The chip was gone now. She was waking up. Fully. In her hand. Blue energy sparked like lightning. "They built me to be a tool," she said. but I still remember how to be a storm. The sixth match was hours away, but the real fight, it had already begun. In silence, in shadows, and in the minds of two beings who were never meant to meet. A soldier without a name, a slave without a past, and a plan that was never supposed to succeed. He didn't scream when they hit him, not when they broke his ribs, not when they dragged him across metal floors like a sack of trash. The guards were trying to hurt him, to crush him before the final fight, to remind him he was still a prisoner. But the human didn't scream. He only counted 3, 4, 5 guards, weak ankles, stiff armor, untrained. He memorized everything, even while bleeding, because he knew one thing now: they're afraid. Up in the arena control room, the arena lords argued again. He's too popular. The crowd is calling him a symbol. He's not a symbol. He's a problem. Then kill him before the final fight. Quietly, they agreed. The rules, no longer mattered. This wasn't a game anymore. It was containment. Meanwhile, in a hidden chamber deep under the arena, Cerise was standing in front of a broken mirror. Her reflection was changing, not physically, but something behind her eyes had shifted. She wasn't just remembering anymore. She was feeling anger, fire, power. She reached up to touch the back of her neck, where the chip had once been. Gone now, but the pain? Still there. You okay? A voice said. She turned. The human stood in the doorway, limping, bruised, but alive. She ran to him. They hurt you, she said, furious. They tried, he replied, smiling with half a mouth. He sat down, breathing hard. You don't have to do the 7th fight, she said. We can escape now. I've unlocked the lower gates. We go. Tonight. No, he said quietly. Not yet. She stared at him. Why? Why stay one more night in this hell? Because if I leave now, they'll just rebuild it. Another arena. More slaves. More experiments. He looked up at her, and his eyes were calm but sharp. I don't want to escape. I want to end it. Flashback, Earth Military HQ. A group of generals stand around a table. You understand the mission, Wolf 9? You won't be rescued. You go alone. The soldier nods. I'll go dark. If I find Cerise, I bring her home. If I don't, I finish the project from inside. Back to Peoria. Cerise turned away, her hands shaking. You're still on mission? Yes. Even after everything? He looked at her. His voice softened. You weren't just a target. You were the reason. That night, the guards came for him again, but this time, he didn't resist. He let them take him to a cold metal chair, strap his arms, blindfold his eyes. A voice echoed in the dark, one of the arena lords. We offered you fame, glory. You chose pain. Why? No answer. We gave you her. You could have taken her and left. Still silence. Then, the human smiled. You still don't understand. She was never yours to give. They beat him again, harder, this time for hours, but the smile never faded. In the upper towers, the final match was being prepared. The 7th and last fight. The reward? Freedom. The punishment? Death. But tonight, something strange happened. The arena's power grid flickered. Some doors unlocked for no reason. The prisoner cages on level 6 were empty. And the guards? They began to disappear. One by one, silently. Cerise walked through the shadows like a ghost. Her hands glowing blue, her eyes locked forward. She didn't kill. She simply knocked them out, erased the cameras, opened the gates. She had become the storm the arena tried to contain. As the sun began to rise, the crowd flooded the arena again, louder than ever. They were chanting one name. Wolf, Wolf, Wolf. No one had told them his name, but the name had spread anyway. A whisper. A rumor. The wolf who hunts from inside the cage. The announcer stepped forward nervously. And now, the final match. One human, one legend. One last breath of blood. The gate opened. The arena shook. But the human wasn't standing alone anymore. Beside him, walking slowly, stood Cerise. The guards tried to stop her, but their weapons melted in her hands. She looked up at the arena lords. You should have never built this place. The human cracked his neck, rolled his shoulder. Let's finish what we started. The crowd was louder than ever. Thousands of aliens stood shoulder to shoulder, staring into the arena. Some were chanting. Others were silent. All of them were waiting. Not for the beast, not for the battle, but for him, the wounded human who smiled before every kill. The one who'd survived 6 fights. The one who now stood with someone they had once called a slave. Now, they looked at her like a goddess. Cerise and the human stood side by side in the center of the arena. She wore no chains now. Her eyes were glowing. Her hands sparked with energy. He was bruised, bleeding, but still smiling. You ready? She asked softly. Born ready, he said. High above, the arena lord stood in a glass tower, silent and pale. Behind them, alarms were blinking red. Security has failed. Cages are open. Power grid is collapsing. And worse, the people were watching. All across the galaxy, screens were broadcasting the final match. The crowd was no longer cheering for the monsters. They were cheering for something else. Rebellion. The final enemy entered the arena. 10 feet. Tall, robotic, covered in gold armor, not a beast. Not a fighter, a symbol. The last wall between this human and freedom. But this wasn't just a test anymore. This was a trap. The robot wasn't built to fight fair. It had explosives inside. One order from the control room, and it would blow them all to pieces. The human stepped forward. I know what this is, he said to the glass tower. A suicide switch. You think you still control the story. He looked at Cerise, then back at the robot. Let's change the ending. Suddenly, the lights died. Every screen in the arena turned to static. Then Cerise's voice came through the speakers, loud and clear. To all prisoners in the lower cells. Run, the gates are open, you are free. Screams, doors opening. Chaos, but not panic. Hope. The human charged the robot head on. The robot struck first hard. Metal met bone. Blood flew across the arena floor. But the human kept coming. One dodge. One strike. One move after another. Calculated, angry, relentless. Cerise joined the fight, her energy cutting through the armor like fire through ice. And when the robot tried to trigger its explosive core, she jammed her hand into its chest, overloading the system. Boom, but not an explosion. A shutdown. Smoke rose. Sparks danced, and then silenced. The robot dropped. The human fell to one knee, breathing hard. Cerise caught him before he hit the ground. You okay? She asked. I'm tired of bleeding, he said. Let's end this for good. The glass chamber shattered. The arena lords tried to escape, but the gates had been hacked. The doors wouldn't open. Prisoners, dozens of them, had entered the upper floors, not with weapons, but with rage. You bet on our pain, one shouted. Now bet on your own survival. The arena burned, not with fire, but with change. Screens across the galaxy showed the moment it all collapsed. A human and an alien weapon, standing together, not killing for sport, but freeing others. The symbol spread, and the message was simple. Never bet against a wounded human, especially when he's not fighting alone. Later, far from the ruined arena, on a quiet alien world, a fire crackled. The human sat on a rock, bandaged, drinking something warm. Cerise stood nearby, staring up at the stars. What now? She asked. We disappear for a while, he said. Then we find the next one. Another arena? He nodded. Or a lab. Or a slave ship, doesn't matter. We break every cage we find. She smiled, eyes glowing once more. Then let's get to work. Volf. He looked at her, surprised. You remembered? Not everything, just enough. They stood together, watching the stars move. The galaxy had changed, and the two who were never supposed to meet were now the most dangerous pair in the universe.